This is Life and Books and Everything, hosted by Kevin DeYoung, Justin Taylor, and Colin Hanson.
Welcome back to Life and Books and Everything. I am Kevin DeYoung with Justin Taylor and Colin Hanson. We are so glad that you have joined us as we record this here on Monday, May 11. I want to start with a question, and I hope it's doesn't move in a unedifying direction or make light of anyone's passing. But at 92 years old, Jerry Stiller, comedian, passed away this morning. Most famous, probably, well, for our generation. Not commending the show to you. Use your discretion. But Frank Costanza, George Costanza's father on Seinfeld, and perhaps most famously, his character invented Festivus for the rest of us. So in honor of Festivus, I thought we could begin with the airing of grievances.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
I got a lot of problems. Serenity now! So I thought nothing too serious, but I thought, give me a little insight into the idiosyncratic world that is Justin Taylor or Colin Hanson. What are some little mini rants, some pet peeves that you have? And once I knew I was going to ask this question, this is a sanctification issue. I couldn't stop. I started just listing. I just had a long
You better start
list.
then as you give us a chance to warm up.
Okay, well, I won't mention all of them, but here's a few that are on my list. 1, grow as a transitive verb. Can I get an amen, Justin? I know that you can do this now, but I grew up learning that unless you grow corn, grow is an intransitive verb. You cause something to grow. So all the people growing churches, growing their budget, it just bothers me. Here's the extent to which it bothered me. When I was at Urbana 1996, they had a song that somebody, it was a nice song, and it was just a homegrown song for the conference, and the chorus was "Grow something new," and in my life, oh Lord, grow something new, and I just couldn't sing it. I kept under my breath saying, "Cause something to grow in me," instead of grow. So I just didn't. I don't like grow as a transitive verb. I don't like when people think they can pick and choose willy-nilly their sports teams. I remember 10 years ago in East Lansing, a guy working on our house doing something. I'm making small talk, and he mentions he's a Michigan fan. So you're in, he gives some hard time about beating us in football, Michigan State. And I said, wait till basketball. And here's what he said. I'm not making this up. He said, well, in basketball, I kind of root for the Spartans. Well, and I've had people here who, they'll give me a hard time about Duke, and I'll say, well, how's Duke football? Well, in football, I'm a little bit of a Clemson fan. No, you can't do that. At basketball, I've just always been a Warriors fan. Until recently, I'm not so much. So that's you can't do that. That breaks rules. What bothers me? My kids, when they went to the public school, and there's good and bad things about the public school, but the big banner, sort of their slogan was raising global citizens. And there was there's a worldview behind that.
At least it wasn't growing global
citizens. I know, that would have been horrible. But you're not a citizen. There are no global citizens. Okay, until Mars is colonized, you live here. You are not a citizen of the world. There is no citizenship of the world. You have a citizenship to a particular country, people, place.
Heaven?
Yeah.
Does the World Series bother you?
Yes, that bothers. Well, it is America. We have Canada in there.
Would it make Korea and Japan feel better if they got to participate in it?
Or Cuba. Okay, here's my
Another classic Seinfeld moment.
I know I have many more, but here's my last one, which is semi legit. I think I have a long time pet peeve with Christian colleges, their alumni magazines. For once, I want to see them highlight a mother, not a mother who is also doing the New York Ballet, or a mother who also is discovering the cure for cancer. I want a mom. Now, I don't expect that from a secular university, but I'd like to see a Christian college, not just to affirm moms, but to affirm their liberal arts education, that what we give you is not just valuable if you end up being a quote unquote important person. It's valuable because it makes you a better mom. It makes you a better Christian. It makes you a better thinker. So I have a pet peeve when, 55% or more of their graduates are women. And for a Christian conservative school, probably most of them are spending their next 2 decades in large part being moms. And you would never guess it from their alumni content that any of their impressive graduates are mothers. There you go.
I thought you were going to say something about world changers.
Oh, I'll get on that too.
World changing global citizens. I want to hear what Justin has to say, and then I want to just save up for the feats of strength.
All right. Airing of Grievances, Justin.
What do you got, Justin?
All right, Kevin, you're at an advantage here because you get to think about these for several days.
Okay, well, I could have given you that ahead of time. I'm sorry.
No, your list was very impactful, so I appreciated it.
No, don't impactful is another word. I was going to put that on my
He
list.
stole mine. This is just going to be a list of editing grievances, actually.
The M dash and the N dash. Okay, go, Justin.
Yeah. Have you figured those out yet?
I know what they are. I just, on my computer, I
refuse
forget
to
how
use
to
them.
I love how this friendship works. Justin complains to Kevin about the dashes. Kevin refuses to change decade after decade. Meanwhile, I go into every blog post Kevin writes and I make them right. I fix them.
Tell me how to do it on my blog post.
To make Justin happy, I fix all of them on the blog posts.
Yeah, the airing of grievances is a fun editorial activity because there are so many of them. I don't really have any grievances. I just give thanks in all circumstances, and I'm not wired like Kevin, I guess. No, the Iowa Hawkeyes would be one.
All of us agree.
No, what? Just Nebraska. Anything more than that? Just state prejudice.
It's mainly state prejudice, and all Iowans.
But they wave to the children, Justin.
I know that they do one nice thing. That is cool.
They added that later. I was a student in 2000 when they denied Northwestern going to the Rose Bowl. I will never forget Iowa for that. So I'm with you, Justin. I agree.
Okay. I guess a few kind of spiritual ones. I've thought about writing a blog post defending people who use the word just in their prayers, like every sentence. I think there's something humble about it, but it still grates in the ears when somebody prays and inserts the word just before every request, Lord. And they remind God of his title, name, Lord, every sentence, just Lord, we just want to come before you today. And also inviting God into our presence is another prayer pet peeve, but that's very unsanctified to always be judging people's prayers when you hear them pray the Lord, but that is one for me. On Twitter, people asking to retweet or retweeting themselves or quote retweeting themselves. I saw somebody today liked a post that they had retweeted, I think, of themselves. So it's like Inception on Twitter of retweeting oneself, retweeting stuff. I guess an interpersonal one. These aren't as funny or creative or cool as Kevin's, but when somebody wants to talk to you, they ask for time to get together, and then they talk for 95% of the time, and you're thinking of helpful, insightful, wise responses, and you kind of come to the end of it and you realize they didn't want to hear anything. They just wanted to speak.
Justin's now referring to our lunches at Jimmy John's together in Wheaton.
I was not going to mention that, but
sorry, Justin.
Or I would add, and maybe this is more unique to the pastoral vocation, you meet and someone wanted to have lunch and you do it for an hour and 15 minutes and you think, okay, I guess it was just a get together, and you say, any way I can pray for you, which is the Christian way of saying, I'm almost done, are you? And then they say, well, the reason I wanted to get together, and you think, oh, we have been doing a lot of preamble.
Now, that guy who had lunch with you last week was going to feel really bad about
Yeah, well, I haven't had lunch with anyone in person for a long time.
Yeah, nobody.
Virtual lunch. No, that's the airing of my grievances.
No,
for now,
more
but
spiritual.
Let me add just one. That is complaining on Twitter about people who are not on Twitter or who do not listen to you on Twitter. So I've been kicking this around lately that I think there really has been some kind of revolution affected by social media where all of a sudden our reaction to the news is now the news. And that's really disturbing to me at a variety of different levels. I think it's distorting even to our humanity because it now means we have to project ourselves at all times. But a lot of times on Twitter, I think you do realize nobody's listening. So being mad at somebody else because they're not being mad about that thing that person did, who doesn't care what either one of you thinks or says about anything, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Okay, so let me add a corollary of somebody doing a nice thing. Happy birthday, Grandma, who's 107 today, and like Grandma's not seeing this. Or, happy birthday to my 2-month-old. Why are you saying that? They're not being encouraged by this. They're not like getting warm fuzzies, and they don't care how many likes
tweeting their mom on Mother's Day. She's not following. And everyone who says, to the best mom, I always want to, you are really hurting. You don't have the best mom. Who said that?
Prove it.
That's a Michael Scott best boss moment right there.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Colin? Sorry, I should have given you that question ahead of time.
No, that's good. I mean, I am always up for some Frank Costanza yelling at Steinbrenner for trading Jay Buhner. I mean, it is just classic.
Well, maybe we can make this a recurring theme on the show. People who don't put on their turn signal, people slow at the left turn lane. There are many. Colin, I thought you were going to say this with Twitter because you said this to me one time, and it actually stuck with me. You said, don't complain about travel on Twitter because you look when you're, oh boy, the airport in Geneva is so busy today. That
there's no way to complain about your connection in Bali from Jakarta. That doesn't make you come across looking, not exactly like the most edifying person.
There was kind of a weird season of Twitter life where people were complaining about the TSA. It's just like, why? I mean, the TSA is not following you. No one cares that you had your commute was delayed by 7 minutes because they searched your knapsack. It's another.
Did you just say knapsack?
He did say knapsack.
Wow. Okay.
You don't have a knapsack?
No, I thought that roughly went out of English usage in 1865.
No, well, you need a knapsack for your extra pair of knickers.
Well, I wear a bandana, and that is helpful now. So,
well, yeah, I was going to say now we actually do need bandanas. I keep looking for my stock that I can't find.
Okay, so this question just came to me, so I don't know if I have a good answer, but I should. What would someone say if they had to take truth serum? Is their pet peeve about you?
Oh gosh.
Don't tell your pet peeve about me, but okay, here I know I had a friend, I'll say who it is off air, who one time said to me, Kevin, you're compliant but complaining. And I thought there's some truth to that. Like, yeah, I'll just do it, and I'm making clear that I don't really like it. Just soft, quiet grumbling. I'm sure many people have left my presence and said, that guy is impossible to feed. and I'm sure they've
not
got
because
Many-
of volume
many-
of food.
no,
Many
because of,
or all?
all perhaps, or especially if I speak somewhere and my admin assistant who's just doing a wonderful job trying to help me says he needs this type of cheese only, he needs this brand of Tostitos, he needs berry Cheerios, he needs
Gummy bears.
yeah, that sort of thing.
He only eats blue M&Ms.
Yeah, right.
These are actual things because of your diet.
These are actual, and I'm sure there are much more consequential things. You guys come up with anything off the top of your head?
Things about you?
No, that's not off the top of your head. That's in your journal.
I had like 4 things.
What's the airing of grievances about Colin Hansen?
Oh gosh, well that's an easy one. Nobody is better than I am about talking at length about things no one else cares about. And not caring at all. I mean, it's perfect for podcasting, right? Or the opposite. No, that's my specialty. Is I just get really enthusiastic about things that no one else cares about, and I don't really care or have the courtesy to stop talking about them to people who don't care. So, to all of you who know way more about Northwestern football and the Civil War and everything else, I'm sorry. And I don't know how to change. And I'm getting close to 40. And I figure at that point, that's just not worth bothering.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
So,
Do you have any thoughts on Shelby Foote, Colin?
Yeah, exactly. See, there we go. Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
definitely. I mean, I can think of lots of other ones, but that's got to be number one.
There's no one, Colin, that knows more about the Civil War and Northwestern.
That is true. That
So
is true.
That combo is safe in your hand.
Somebody has to.
All right,
guess.
Justin, anything?
Colin is the Cliff Clavin of this podcast.
It's true.
I think I just have a suspicion that there are a large number of verbal tics that I have that I'm just unaware of. Probably one is there is a sense in which, and I kind of catch myself like, have I said there's a sense in which like 7 times in this conversation? And everybody else may be snickering and I'm blissfully unaware of it at the end of the day.
Well, I haven't.
There you
noticed
go. At the end of the day.
At the end of the day, and that type deal.
I should have said. I should have said ending all sentences with "of." That would be, or prepositions in general. That would be a Midwestern tick going
That
on
would
last
be a
week's
Midwestern.
podcast.
And it's a
At usually, where you at? Where you at?
it's a semi-serious question. You've probably read the C.S. Lewis essay. I reference it all the time in my sermons, The Problem with X. And he talks about, you get with a group of people and you talk about the problem with X, the problem with Justin is, and everyone, the problem with Kevin, and everyone kind of, yeah. And then he turns to it and he says, you need to realize there's some group of people that you're the X, and everyone obviously sees what your problem is. The proverbial salad dressing on the side of your cheek, the ketchup on your mouth that you can't see that everyone else can see. And doesn't mean that we won't have them, but it's been a helpful check in my own heart before I'm so critical of others, which can be a besetting sin, to realize there's somebody out there saying, and you know what Kevin DeYoung's problem is, and probably more than half the time they're right.
One thing I appreciate about friendship with both of you is that you both regularly invite criticism. Oftentimes it's about something that you've written, but you say, push back and tell me what I'm missing here, tell me what I'm doing wrong. And I think the three of us know each other well enough too, that if there's ways in which we are sinning or being unwise in our speech, whether that's tone or content, we kind of have an open door to tell each other like, man, I don't think you got that quite right, or you might want to rethink that. And obviously, even if you invite that, it's still hard to receive it, especially if you disagree with it and feel like you're being stubborn by not agreeing instantly with the feedback. But I think it's a good thing. Find friends who invite criticism and kind of have an open door for that.
I can I can think of other podcasts that seem more or less dedicated to mocking and pointing out the problems with us three and and others like us. So I think this is an actual specific thing, but I hope that's something that comes across in this podcast, that I don't think we claim to have everything figured out or claim to always take ourselves so seriously. I think we do take our beliefs very seriously, and I think we do take God seriously. And I think sometimes those things can be conflated, that that somehow they all have to kind of fit together. But I think just it's possible to be very earnest in your belief about God, and earnest in your belief about his work in the world, and earnest in your belief about what he's doing and who he reveals himself to be in his word. But that doesn't have to translate into kind of seeing yourself as an extension of God's authority in exactly that kind of way. So I hope that's something that comes across. And also, I mean, I think I was just reflecting on this. I don't know what you guys have experienced with this, but this is a podcast about books, about reading, and also to a certain extent about writing and publishing them. And one thing I've just found out recently is that I'm much more open to criticism about my writing now than I was 15 years ago. I think I'm probably a much better writer than I was 15 years ago. But now I don't take it as personally, and I see it as a way I want to grow. And I think if I've gotten to 40 years old and I'm as good as I'm going to get about books, writing, then something's wrong with me. Kevin, I don't know what that's like with your preaching, but that's just something I noticed in myself. Like I got my editor wrote me a long thing on Friday about things that I needed to change. And previously I would have just spent the entire weekend trying to prove him wrong or to fix it. Instead, I was like, okay, I'll get to that. I'm glad that he spent the time telling me where I was wrong.
And it is amazing how difficult it can be to really we all talk about wanting constructive feedback, but either we don't really want it or we don't really get it. And again, not just patting you guys on the back after Justin encouraged us, but I can't think of a time when I've sent you something that I've written where you guys responded and it wasn't helpful. I mean, and 90% of the time, I change the things you suggest to change because I wasn't clear, or you brought up a good point and I hadn't thought of. And I do want to circle back to preaching, because I think that's another conversation to talk about, because it's very difficult for preachers to get good feedback. I want to give you a chance to add into this conversation, Justin, before I circle us back to talk a little bit about some of the social media, Twitter stuff we were just alluding to. Do you want to say anything else about this self-improvement and writing?
I do think that very few of us are so gifted at thinking and writing that we don't need help. And I would resonate with what Colin said. I feel like the older I get, in so many ways, I feel like there's so much more that I don't know. And my self-doubt at some level even rises. I'm just eager for feedback and to see how it communicates with other people. Because when you write something, it's not like it just enters some vault that gets graded at some cosmic level. The whole point of it is to communicate with people. And so you want to run by something to see what people actually think. Does this make sense? Is it clear? Was it compelling? Did it make you want to keep reading? So it's a way of field testing what you're doing. And I think we reject that step kind of at our own peril. There's no benefit to it. And the key is to find the sort of people that you trust, because you could send those pieces ahead of time, Kevin, to really strong critics of yours, and that might be helpful at a certain level, but it's not going to be the sort of help that you would expect. Or somebody who just, send it to your mom and she thinks, this is brilliant, Kevin. Thank you so much. You always say it exactly right. And so finding the right sort of critic and dialogue partners is probably one of the most important things.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good segue, because it ties into both of these conversations we're having. We were talking, I think it was last week, just about how Marshall McLuhan's famous dictum that the medium is the message, that we can naively think that we have a message, and no matter how it goes out on what sort of medium, it's always the same, and fail to realize that the medium, if it isn't the message, it certainly shapes the message. And I was just relating what I had heard someone recently observe, that print was undeniably tied to Protestantism. We know that, but it also was a shaping and shaped by Protestant religion of the word. Radio tied to the rise of totalitarianism, perhaps television tied to the rise of kind of demagogic presidency, or just president as communicator in chief above all else. And then social media with the rise of populism. But all of us are on social media, blogging, Twitter. Maybe you guys are on the other platforms as well. How do you think that particular medium affects the message, and what are possibilities that can be for good, and what are some of the pitfalls? And I have a few theories that maybe we'll get into, but I might start with you, Colin, because you're very observant with these things and even more dialed in than the rest of us. How has this changed? I mean, Justin's been blogging for a long time, and I've been blogging for over 10 years, but a lot of this social media stuff has changed. How have you seen it changed? And how in particular is there a danger that as that's changed, it might be changing us or how we communicate?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately, because during this lockdown, I'm becoming increasingly sensitive to social media. It's been more discouraging to me. I just sort of, I have this sense of regret, or like, oh no, this is really going to tear me down. It's going to bring me down when I look at Twitter and I look at Facebook. I think, I'd be very interested to know what you guys think about this, because I do think that something changed, that now our reaction is the news, and there is the expectation of this performative outrage. And what I've been trying to figure out is that it doesn't appear to be it's not like one group does this. It's not like only the right does this, or only the left does this, or only Christians do this, or only communists do this. It seems to be endemic to the system itself. There seems to be an inherently reactive nature to this. And so what I've noticed a lot is that with social media, there's an expectation that somebody must be blamed and this wrong must be fixed. And that's just the default. Now, and again, it doesn't matter which side you're on. And so everybody somehow senses that I'm defending myself and people and things that I love against some kind of conspiracy that's trying to take us down. And I don't know why we think our performative outrage is accomplishing that, but it almost seems, I've got an interview that's out now with Yuval Levine, and it seems like we now believe that when you say something, you have accomplished something. I think that's new, guys. I mean, I know you can go back. My wife and I were talking about this, and she was pointing out that we now do cause marketing, celebrity marketing, but then I went back to the activism of the Vietnam era. So I'm not sure all of that is really new, but this combination of performative outrage, there's always somebody who must be blamed. There's always somebody who must fix this. There's always some conspiracy that I'm trying to out, and my reaction is itself the news. And whenever something bad happens, I am obligated to perform according to the expectations of my tribe. I'm really worried about this. I'm worried about this for our kids. I'm worried about this for myself. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a long-term takeaway for me with the lockdown, because I do think, I'll just close with this, I think more people have more time on social media now because of the lockdown. And I think people are agitated. They're looking for connection. And I thought, so many crises draw out the best in people and they bring out solidarity. I feel like this has been the opposite. I think it's getting worse. And I've been surprised by some of the controversies that have proceeded, as if there's no huge, global pandemic even going on right now. So I don't know what you guys think. And I try not to exaggerate this, but I think this is different. Like growing up, if something happened in the news, would anybody care what you thought about it? What would you do? You send a letter to the editor? Maybe you call in to a show?
Right.
Wouldn't matter.
No, that's really insightful. What do you think, Justin? You follow this stuff a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Colin is just saying. I think that is insightful, and I think it's right, and it's worrisome, and it also feels like it's one of those things where it's difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. Like, what do we do other than just to say, I'm going to go cold turkey, and I don't know what people are saying, and I'm not going to participate in it. I think that you guys model social media better than I do, and not looking at your mentions as much. And I think, Kevin, the way that you do it probably is exemplary, better than what I'm doing, even though I'm trying. Just a little bit of a different angle from Colin, and this might seem a little bit more benign, but the very nature of Twitter, as an example, that you have to compress your thought into, now it's 280 characters. I remember one time John Piper did a controversial I can't even remember what the controversy was at the moment, but it was like 3 tweets, kind of a little string of 3 tweets. And Rachel Held Evans, the late Rachel Held Evans, tragically passed away, quote retweeted one of his tweets and, did her thing where she made him look bad and kind of called upon others to pounce. And I remember Piper saying by email, it was a classic mistake on his part, that he always wants every tweet to stand alone. And he kind of made a mistake there. And it was an argument. So it was kind of a 3-step argument, but somebody can take one step of your argument out of context without anybody knowing that there was a second part or something that qualified it, which means that it's almost inherently contrary to careful reasoning and to nuance. If you want to make an argument, arguments take steps. They require clarity on terms. They require proper procedures in terms of logical connections from one premise to reach a conclusion. And it's just very difficult to do that. So unless you're merely tweeting to do fun stuff about whether Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, which he is, or if you're linking to things where you can make a bigger argument, to try to argue on Twitter is really, really difficult and just seems counterproductive. So nuance is lost, but then it's required that you present things in the most provocative way that get the most attention, because we're all creatures of feedback. So if you do a tweet and literally nobody likes it and nobody responds to it, there's only so many times that you're going to do that. And until you realize I'm just wasting my finger strength in tweeting this out. What's the point? Now, if I make it a little bit more provocative, if I make it a little less nuanced, all of a sudden, hey, look at this reaction. It's a little bit of Pavlovian dog interaction there, that you get that feedback and you realize this is being rewarded if I say it this way, and it's not rewarded if I am more careful, if I'm more nuanced. And there's just these expectations. I mean, an 800-word column, say by David Brooks, allows him to set forth an argument, to cite some facts. If you were to do an 800-word string of tweets, people just say, what is wrong with this guy? This is crazy. What? You're just going on and on and on. Everything about the medium is just saying, be short, be concise. I only have 2 seconds. If you don't tell me in 2 seconds, I'm moving on. So there's a lot of things that are unhealthy about that whole dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And one of the things I've been thinking about lately, and let's just take people of, think of Christians basically of some goodwill in online spaces, blogging, Twitter, a Facebook post. I think some of the inherent difficulty is because online media like that straddles different kinds of communication. For example, if you're writing a book is not immediate. Justin knows that better than anyone. It is a long process through a lot of layers. Now, you may be responding to somebody else's book or ideas out there, but it's far from immediate. And it's not personal. Now, you can make a book personal. You can attack people. You can be responding. But it's much more difficult to do. Take that as a book. On the other end, take a conversation sitting down around a table with someone. Unlike a book, it's both immediate and personal. So there are certain things in a book that are expected generally, a kind of dispassioned analysis. I mean, you may be passionate about it, but the way you respond, you're not called upon to maybe come alongside and assuage the feelings of those who you're. Whereas if you're having a conversation and the person across from you seems really upset, well, yeah, that's what you do as a Christian or just as a human being. You say, whoa, what's going on? Are you okay? Did I say something? That's how you relate when you are personal and immediate. And it seems like one of the struggles is Twitter, blogging, online. We go back and forth. Which one of these are we trying to do? And depending on who you are and what you're talking about, you may have a different aim for it. So I often, and I'm more on I treat online discussion as I'm putting out information, I'm giving you content if you want to respond. But the nature of people often talk about the conversation. And some people use